Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love, and more information about the mysteries of Mars. What is going on over there? Is it our ancestral home or someone else's home? There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of evidence. And today we're going to talk to George Haas about that. And he wrote a book recently called The Great Architects of Mars: Evidence for the Lost Civilizations on the Red Planet. Wow, because there's so much evidence. So we're going to talk to him about this in just a second. But first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click that button that connects us so you know when people like George Haas come on and they have this incredible information, you know about it instantly. And lastly, tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. You know who they are. You know their energy. Bring them here. midnightonearth.com. Okay. We're about to talk to George, and man, this is going to be a doozy of an episode, a whopper, as they say. So we do have to read his bio, though. So here we go. George J. Haas is the founder and premier investigator of the Mars research group known as the Cydonia Institute, a member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research. He has co-authored 2 books and 6 peer-reviewed science papers related to anomalous formations on the surface of Mars. He has appeared on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie and on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, The Proof is Out There, and The Unexplained with William Shatner, which I absolutely love. He lives in Virginia, and he's with us now. Hello, George. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Jake. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to talk about Mars. Okay, look, Mars. Obviously, it's a planet in our solar system. Most people know that, but not many people realize that there are theories that suggest, and even evidence that suggests, that there were ancient civilizations there, or we may have originated there. Tell me how you got interested in this, and tell me about all of this.
Well, Jake, it's a long story. It goes all the way back to when I was in high school, back in 1976. I was a bicentennial class.
Okay.
Any of your older people like me out there might remember there was a big celebration in the country in 1976. It was a 200-year anniversary.
Right.
NASA had sent up, for 200, they sent up 2 Mars rovers, or not rovers, orbital cameras with, they were going to have landers on them to go land on Mars. Supposedly it was going to land in 1976 on 4th of July, the 4th of July landing of the landers, the Viking landers in the Utopia area. Unfortunately, it didn't happen on 4th of July. It was a week or so later. I think it might have been even in August. I can't remember right now, but that was very interesting times. And there was a lot of talk about after they took some photographs, NASA released an image saying they thought they found a formation that looked like a face on the surface. And that's what got my interest from the beginning there. And years passed, and after that, all excitement about this so-called face on Mars, which NASA said they took another picture and it was just a trick of light and shadow. Interest in it kind of like waned, and I got on with my life. And I think most people forgot about it until NASA had decided to send up the Mars orbiter, which was going to take new pictures of the face on Mars. This was in the early 1990s. So that kind of sparked everybody's interest. And that's basically how I got interested in this.
Right.
way
And it
back
just
then.
called you. You were an artist. You had other life paths, but you were called to do this type of work. I guess I should ask this question very briefly. Do you feel like you've had a past life on Mars? Have you ever had a past life regression experience, perhaps?
No, I haven't experienced that. I've heard about a lot of people, but usually the people that regress and talk about a past life, they're usually some famous person. Everybody's, their past life was always some famous person,
right?
Pharaoh, or
it's never like the latrine cleaner, the bathroom cleaner for the Pharaoh.
Right? You never hear, I worked at a candy store, back and out in the West, and none of that. It's always some famous person. So I don't know. I've always had a strong connection to Mars. The fascination with the god of war and all this stuff, and all the stuff that NASA was taking pictures of. It was just very fascinating. And just so your listeners know, I am trained as an artist. That's my avocation. I went to art school. I lived in New Jersey and had access easily to go to New York, Philadelphia. I exhibited up in the East Village in the big 80s when everything was exciting with art. Julian Schnabel and all those big names. Okay. So Jeff Koons, I actually met Jeff Koons in East Village before he was very famous. And it was a great time. And I was an artist, did sculpture, painting, silk screening, all kinds of art. And as an artist, I think this actually gave me a little bit more insight to what I was looking at in these formations on Mars, because being an artist, I know artwork and structures when I see it. And Mars is just full of it.
Yes, I was going to say that as an artist, especially in the sculpture realm, you're seeing the final product perhaps in a cruder state, but the vision is there. And so you can almost reverse engineer or see, kind of subtract, things that have happened related to erosion and see these images, these structures and geoglyphs that are on Mars. So it was the Randolpho Raphael wrote the book, the first book about the face on Mars, which was later promulgated, really put out there by Richard C. Hoagland. He was out there lecturing on it, and he created a video about it that really put the word out there, I believe, in the 90s. But as an artist, this book focuses mostly on the geometric structures that were easily seen. There's a lot of very speculatory, flat, two-dimensional images. You're looking at just the geometric structures, the geometric and symbolic data, but just focusing on this.
Yes. Beginning with the face on Mars, the NASA was very clever with the way they handled the face. When people hear there's a face on Mars, they think of a face that looks like, Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra, a symmetrical face. Well, the face on Mars is just way too complicated for your average person. And they said the face was a trick of light and shadow. But, every sculpture, when you make a three-dimensional sculpture and carve it out of stone, it is a trick of light. It's not a real face. You're carving the nose and the eyes, and it all depends on how you carve it for the shadows to, have that eye come out in the nose and the mouth. So a trick of light and shadow is, hand in hand with sculpture. But the problem with the face on Mars was that it was a bifurcated face. It had a humanoid type face on one side, and the other half was a feline face. So it was a human feline, which is right out of Mesoamerican artwork. You see a lot of that life and death mask. You see a human feline mask. There'll be dog and human masks that they produce. So this whole idea of duality was very strong with the Maya artwork. But scientists, the academics, they don't know much about Maya artwork, your average scientist that's involved in this. And when they think of artwork, they think of, Roman art. Everything was, beautifully carved, symmetrical, looks like Frank Sinatra. But when you're looking at artwork in Mesoamerica, it's very complex. It's composite art. They have all kinds of things hidden within the sculptures and stuff. It's very mind-boggling. And this was what we're seeing on Mars. Everything is related to Mesoamerica. Even these geometric and symmetrical sculptures in these buildings that we're looking at, that I mostly highlighted in the book, because I think most people are more apt to believe that there's structures on Mars when they're symmetrical and they have geometry, because that's more scientific.
Right, exactly. It's hard science, like matter. It's matter. It's measurable. People love that. They need that, especially the people that are very left-brained. They're very left-brained. They're very logical. They need that information. But do you feel like that was easing us in? That perhaps NASA releasing that image of a face, but then later saying it wasn't accurate, taking another shot, saying, no, look at it this way. Do you think, though, that could have been the start or one of the many components of easing us in as humans to the concept of the reality of extraterrestrial intelligence and our perhaps extraterrestrial history?
Well, I think NASA took the opposite take on finding structures on Mars. Okay. They did everything they could to diminish any interest in the face on Mars. All of the new pictures, down the road, I'm going to release a book all about all of the pictures of the face on Mars. When they would take new pictures, they would put them on their website upside down, overly, with the high contrast, bleaching the whole side of the face out and things. They did all this stuff. So if you downloaded the image and did your own work on the image and produced your own version, which you can do on most computers when you download a Paint Shop Pro or something like that. They have the ability to, you can enhance these photos from the raw data, and you get a much better picture of what we're looking at than what NASA releases.
Yes, and it's really interesting because I think we all know that they have far more advanced image capturing technology, and they release these photos that, as people will say now, look like they were taken from a potato. Right. And they're like, oh, this is our best, highest technology photos. Sorry, it's blurry. Yeah, that's just a bunch of meaningless lines. Don't worry about that.
Well, the images are very high tech. They have these beautiful, high resolution images. But it appears like the people that are processing these don't know what they're doing.
That really makes sense.
Let's move on. We don't want to look at this face anyway. So
yes, exactly.
What they can't hide there, Jake, is when they take images that have highly symmetrical geometric formations on the surface, that they can't hide that. They can't say that that's just nothing.
Exactly. And there have been hints of some sort of ancient past related to Mars. There's various associations, as you outline in your book, through different cultures around the world. But there was a top secret CIA program called the Stargate Project, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And a man named Joseph McGonigal claimed to remote view Mars. Now, he didn't even know he was remote viewing Mars, but the CIA tasked this remote viewer to observe these coordinates, and he picked up information relating to humanoids in ancient past, millions of years ago, leaving a planet that was facing devastation and then colonizing another planet. Later, he found out that it was Mars, and this information was declassified by the CIA. Do you feel like this is accurate and plays into all of this?
Well, that whole experiment that they did with the remote viewing really reminds me, I didn't mention this in my book, but that report that you're talking about with the remote viewing almost captures the whole idea about the Mesoamerican mythology, in which they called a Star War, not to be confused with the Lucas movie and Darth Vader. But the Maya actually talked about in their mythology, especially in the little known town of Naranjo, Mexico, which I think the last chapter of my book details the whole history of Naranjo and its conflict with this place they called Sixth Earth Place, the number 6 Earth Place. Now, the Maya counted the planets similar to how the Sumerians did. They counted them from the outside in. So Mars would be the 6th planet, Earth would be the 7th planet, and Venus would be the 8th planet. And at times they would represent them with fictitious, monstrous beings that represented these planets, also with numbered stars. With a 5-pointed star, a 6-pointed star would represent Mars, a 7-pointed star would be Earth, and an 8-pointed star would represent Venus. So 6th Earth Place is an Earth-like place, the 6th planet of our solar system, which is Mars. Now, the Patrian god of this Naranjo place that they talk about, Six Earth Place, was the Zip Monster, who's also known as the Mars Beast. He's famously represented in the Dresden Codex. He appears like a crocodile or an alligator or a serpent, and he's got this big snout that goes out and it kind of goes back on itself. And he is a representation of Mars, and he's frequently talked about in mythology and in their artwork. And in the book, in that chapter about the Maya Star War, I document all of the different ways that the Maya made references to this mythological Mars beast. And his mythology goes all the way back to the famous Popol Vuh he's mentioned there. And that's goes all the way back in time to the primordial waters, where this is where he swam around. It's all this, mythology that they talk about, which is very interesting. And it kind of coordinates with that story, because what I also talk about is that sometime in our distant past, what I call a runaway civilization that was leaving their home world through some type of conflict, or maybe they were taken over by some other extraterrestrials. They left their solar system and came here. And when they came here, they came through Mars and hit the moon and they found this beautiful paradise of planet Earth. Now, at the time when they came here, this was, thousands and thousands of years, possibly millions of years ago. And this story kind of coordinates with the Anunnaki story, where the Anunnaki come into our solar system and they set up a base on Mars and the moon, and they set up a base, a spaceport on Earth, which is now Jerusalem, according to that story. But the Mesoamerican story is similar to that, where this culture comes in, and because they're a runaway culture, they're hiding from somebody. They set up base on Earth, and on the moon and on Mars, they put sentinels. They set up an outpost with guardians. So if this aggressive culture finds them, they can hopefully protect Earth, having these military bases on the moon and on our moon. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. No, this is riveting.
So this whole idea with the story that they were talking about with this remote viewing talks about, these different time periods and someone else on the planet. So what we're finding on Mars is remnants from these outposts. That's what all these structures are about, because Mars really didn't have a lot of atmosphere. So they were building structures, and they were probably living in these arcologies, where these pyramids and these formations that we're seeing, they lived inside those. Many of these structures are over a mile long. They're huge. Oh, and wow. So these were dwelling places, and they were set up as defensive outposts to protect this beautiful paradise Earth from this incoming culture that was looking for them. And eventually, as time passed, they were found. And that's why they had these battles on Mars. And they came to our moon, and everything on the moon was destroyed. And either there was a victor of whoever was occupying our planet, or the aggressive culture that came in took over. And what we're seeing on Mars with the rover, I'm sure some of the people in your audience have seen some of these rover pictures, which NASA has been driving all around on the surface. They had 2 or 3 of them. And they're taking pictures of these panoramic views. And in the distance, not far from these little rovers, it looks like, that looks like a typewriter over there. It looks like part of a machine. That looks like an old 57 Chevy chassis over there. There's all these things that appear to have been blown up. A lot of machinery that's been blown up right next to these nice little rocks that look like rocks. So, you don't need to be a geologist, I don't think, to know what a rock looks like, as opposed to something that has rebarb and wire and all kinds of things sticking out of it. I mean, that looks something like might have been from a building. And there's obviously some pieces that sit around that seem to have facades on them, artwork, very decorative. And they're all, it's as if there was this major war. Things were just blown up all over the place. And to your average person looking at these, not being a geologist, because as Dr. Brandenburg, who's also a member of the Society for Planetary Study Research, he's produced a couple science papers dealing with this whole idea that Mars had massive wars on the planet. And there's evidence of Xenon 129, which was actually recorded in NASA's own data ever since I think the Mariner 9 and the Viking and all of the other spacecraft that went around taking pictures of the surface all had these atmospheric testers on board that actually detected this. Now, if your audience doesn't know what Xenon 129 is, it's a signature for atomic explosions.
Exactly.
I mean, This is what's released. We started noticing this when we were doing all the testing in the 40s, and that xenon 129, went skyrocketed when you could find that in the surface. So we have the same thing. It's a signature for a nuclear type of event, and NASA has known about this on Mars since the 1970s.
So do you feel like intuitively that the good guys won, that in that battle, in that war, that supposedly whoever was on the side of love and light, I guess, won that situation? Earth is very tumultuous, but there is a lot of good here. It feels like either the what we would consider the love and light side won, or the battle is still going.
What I think happened was similar to the writings from the Sumerians, is that this culture that came here, they created us through the available man that was on the planet at the time, which was either the Neanderthals or the Cro-Magnon. And they took them through genetic engineering and made us to work for them. Because when they came here, they had this beautiful paradise and they wanted to build a civilization. And they found these Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon or whatever running around. They, through genetic engineering, gave them a evolution to be more like them, to build for them. So yes. I think that's what they used us as workers.
That is the Zechariah Sitchin take on the experience as well, as he translated these Sumerian tablets. But I just want to ask you really quick, before we pivot away too far from Mars, the circadian rhythm test. Okay, there was a test where people were isolated from external influences, light and days changing, clocks, things like that. And their circadian rhythm changed and matched the rotation of Mars around the sun. Did you talk about that in the book? I don't remember seeing that, but I do know that test supposedly is valid. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've heard of the test. I do not footnote it or mention it in the book, but that's very interesting that humans' natural time clocks seem to be very connected to the orbit of Mars. Which
isn't that interesting? Yes, right, they did. They did a test, and it's I believe it's like 24.65 or something like that. Right around there. And whoa, that's pretty mind blowing information. It does lend itself to the idea that we spent a significant amount of time there. Did we start there? Were we seated there? Perhaps we come from a distant galaxy even before that. We don't know, but we do know, especially based on the evidence outlined in your book, that there is an ancient history of Mars, and there were humanoid beings there. Most likely it was us.
Well, yes, or someone that created us, I think.
Yes.
One of the things, Mars, when the extraterrestrial culture came here, Mars was already a dead planet. The storyline that I like to use is that when our solar system was created, the scientists tell us that it comes from the Big Bang, and all of these particles and all this stuff in the atmosphere all collided together and made the planets that we have in our solar system. However, the asteroid belt just it didn't work with the asteroid belt. We have this whole asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Now, Dr. Tom Van Franlin talks about this area. He calls it he has a whole story about this planet possibly blew up.
Right.
And when that planet blew up, created the asteroid belt. And when that planet blew up, whatever life was on Mars, Earth, or even Venus, Mercury, was all changed, because when that planet blew up, it basically destroyed everything that was on Mars, if there was a culture, and it pushed all the planets inward. So this happened probably 65 million years ago, and that's what killed the dinosaurs. See, the dinosaurs didn't die from that one meteor hitting in the Yucatan. What killed the dinosaurs is gravity. You can't build a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Brontosaurus or one of these huge dinosaurs today. They couldn't stand up.
Right.
There's actually anthropologists and people that study dinosaurs, you couldn't do Jurassic Park today, because those Brontosauruses, with the big long tails. And
of course, the gravity, the weight of the bones.
Right. So there's too much gravity. So whatever happened on Earth pushed our planet closer to the sun. We had more gravity, and it became a paradise. And even people that talk about the death of the dinosaurs and when this happened, the lower reptiles all survived because they were smaller. They were lower to the ground. The crocodiles, the turtles, things like that, they were all around the same time as dinosaurs. But the dinosaurs died because of gravity.
Wow.
And of course, when Earth became in that, sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone where everything was perfect, and it flourished into this paradise. And, the Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon evolved. And that's when this outside culture came in, and that's why we have the missing link. What happened between Neanderthal and man? Where's the jump?
Yeah,
I think the jump was the Anunnaki type. So this two mythologies, this Mesoamerican story and this Anunnaki story, I think it's all part of the same story, but told differently by different cultures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are correlations everywhere in these ancient indigenous cultures, especially about their origins, where they came from. Even if it's different parts of the solar system or even different galaxies, they're still coming from out there. You can really just say extrapolate outside of Earth. So across the board, everyone's saying, hey, our origins are not on this Earth. There's a lot of kind of indicators that makes sense. I mean, we're not really born with any suitable clothing in order to survive, just like the other animals. Our eyes are so sensitive. There's so many different things, the heat, the UV rays. There's so many different things that indicate that perhaps this is not our origin planet. But I think that the Earth being a living planet and having a spirit would have to have some sort of agreement. There would have to be some sort of understanding that the human story was going to continue on this planet.
Right, and you're asking where did they go? What happened?
Yeah, where did they go?
I think the big mistake that this runaway civilization, or the Anunnaki, whatever type of culture they were, this alien race that came here, and through genetic engineering made us, to work for them, because we were also on Mars. I mean, they weren't building these structures themselves. They had our ancestors were over there building everything for them. So that may be where we get the different time thing going on with Mars, depending on, what your genes are in your family.
So they were shipping us everywhere. We were everywhere working.
Right. We're workers, boy. We like to work, normally. But I think what happened was they used the available man that they found on Earth, and they were very aggressive. The Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, they were a warlike people. And these Anunnaki, or this group that the Maya talk about, they probably couldn't control us. As you can see, we're very warlike. I mean, we're blowing things up all the time. And, Elon Musk is worried that we'll blow ourselves up here. So we want to have a base on Mars to go. So it's like history repeating itself. We're planet jumping around. So I think that was one of their mistakes, was they used us, the Cro-Magnon, to make us, or the Neanderthal, and they just couldn't control us. And once they were found out, when this culture found them, they just got out of here. They had to go find a new home. And that's why we were on our own after that.
And there were probably evolutionary jumps they weren't anticipating. Fusing those DNA strands perhaps led to things that they didn't even know was going to happen. And then all of a sudden they have this kind of, as you're saying, aggressive culture, this aggressive being, now having these manifestation powers, being able to imagine and visualize and then make things happen in the real world. That's the gift of the human, and that seems to be perhaps the gift of all advanced beings throughout the universe. And here we are, a little bit too aggressive to be playing with that fire. But NASA itself, though, has been covering up, as you're saying. Yes, they release the photos, but then they always try to backtrack. They always contradict. They always say things that are negating it. I grew up, and tell me what you think about this. I grew up where Mars had a red sky. The first chunk of my life, 15 years of my life probably, I was told that Mars had a red sky. And in fact, it was so known that in the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the plot points was that there was a blue sky on Mars and how abnormal and strange that was. Now you see the photos. Now you see that there was always a blue sky on Mars with tints of gray. And they say, oh, well, it was color correction issues. Oh, they put red where they should have put blue. What do you think about that? How did that change, and why didn't anybody say anything about that?
Well, nobody said anything until they noticed that they were calibrated, because they put a color code on the rovers and stuff. So when they do the color, it's on. They have the little tags on the plates, which have it's like a color coded ring, so they can calibrate the color right. So they knew what they were doing, but somebody was, tuning up the red a little high to keep the red going. When they got there, and you have all these rovers going around, they have very, high resolution cameras, and they know what color it is. And the other problem, a lot of that dissipated after when they did these panoramic views. Occasionally there'd be clouds in the sky.
Right.
We don't have clouds on Mars. No. So have you seen those pictures? Just, these cumulus clouds going. So the atmosphere is a little heavier than I think they're telling us. It's probably not a breathable atmosphere. But again, these structures that were built there were built from a high-tech culture, and they had spacesuits on or whatever they did when they made these. And you don't necessarily have to have oxygen to build a colony there. I mean, we could build cities on the moon, and you can't breathe up there, but we would bring oxygen with us. I mean, it's like, oh, because there's no oxygen, we can't go there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no oxygen underwater. You can't go underwater.
Well, you think about the level of advancement that you would need to have to create these structures, right, and then to think that they couldn't independently or artificially create oxygen. That's insanity. So they were able to do that. And I loved in your book how you compared not just the cultural aspects, but the actual structural geometric aspects to show that there's kind of these archetypal designs that flow through cultures, whether we're mimicking the past or that's a representation of the past, it's still there.
Right, you're seeing the archaeology and you're seeing the architecture and the template. It seems to be, if you're going to build something, after a while, it seems to have a pattern that you have to, like my friend Jim Miller, who's an image analyst, he says that, if you're a carpenter and you're going to build a house, I mean, you got to have basic uniformity in the construction. You go to Home Depot and you buy a 4x8, you buy a 2x4, everything is that size. And that's going to dictate what you build. Right. And that's why we're finding a lot of commonality with these structures on Mars, because they were probably built there first, but we still have that in our memories. And when people design things, there's a lot of star forts we're finding on Mars, which are very defensive.
Oh my God!
Right, you've seen those in the book, right?
Yes, of course. And we're going to talk about
all military defense. I mean, why do you have military defense on Mars? Because there was, stuff. They were protecting Mars from these interlopers that were going to come in and take their paradise away. So that's why there was bases. This is just a great explanation for why we're finding structures on Mars when scientists say, "Oh, well, there's no atmosphere there. Why would it?" Because that was an outpost that was there to protect Earth, and They did the same thing with the moon. If they got through Mars, the last hope was on the moon, and you'd fight them from the moon. Like George Bush said during the battles with Afghanistan. Better to fight the war over there than over here.
Absolutely. Wow, you get a little bit of a warning too. You have a little bit of a defense salvo to deal with the oncoming potential deadly threat. Right. But were they larger in scale, like size? Were the structures larger in scale? I know the pyramids there, unlike anything in size on Earth, they're far bigger, but were the Martians themselves, the ones that perhaps were remote viewed or just existed during that time, were they larger? Did they have bigger frames? Was everything just bigger?
I think from history and looking at the mythology of giants, the gods that the Maya talk about and the Anunnaki, they were much bigger stature than us. They were big. And I think the problem they had with Earth also was all the gravity here. I mean, it was great for them to be on Mars and the moon because of the less gravity. But when they came to Earth, when they were trying to get things in order here, I think the gravity paid a toll on them. And I think most of the ones that were here when the original group left, they all died out. That's why we have these mythologies about these, 10-foot giants that were running around, the Philistines that are mentioned in biblical times.
Yes. And other
David
cultures.
And Goliath, 10 foot tall. These are the remnants of the survivors of the giants.
Yes, I read something from Zecharia Sitchin recently that was amazing in relation to this. He was saying that the Nephilim of the Bible, which were also described as giants, were the children of the Anunnaki that were either actually having intercourse with human women or somehow splicing the DNA and creating these hybrid creatures.
Right. And, you had a lot of, Arnold Schwarzeneggers running around, and they were hard to deal with.
It must have been an interesting time for developed humanity. But are these beings that left, that we dealt with, do you feel like they're coming back? I know Zachariah Sitchin perhaps feels that way. Do you personally feel that way, that race could come back?
They may be here. The thing is that I think a lot of these extraterrestrial civilizations, these cultures, I think we have a commonality throughout the universe because of the same elements that make all these different galaxies and solar systems, that we're probably all pretty similar. The sci-fi movies all want aliens to look, monstrous. I think the problem is that, or a problem for the governments, are that a lot of the aliens look like us. It's hard to distinguish because we're all kind of related.
Interesting.
So,
yes.
They may walk among us, but they may not be the original group that, caused all this, disasters on Mars and the moon and the battles that took place on Earth. They might not be related to them, but I think they know about it, and it's a long history.
Yes, and if you look throughout history, all of these beings have been described as humanoid, even if they're tall or different in some way. They're always humanoid. There was even a UFO crash in Japan. I believe it was in like the 1600s or the 1500s, a really long time ago, and it was documented by the local village. And they talked about how these people came out of the craft and they were humanoid. Now, in this case, they were very, very short. They were like 3 feet tall, but they were humanoid and they couldn't fix their craft. So they ended up living there. And now the descendants of these people are still there, and they're all actually extremely short comparatively.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. So we must have some kind of, similar DNA.
Yes. Yes, there is an archetypal DNA. There must be some code, something universal, like a universal law that's the foundation of all life throughout the universe. And when you really think about it, I mean, come on, we're all just neighbors, right? As we scale up our thinking from regional consciousness to solar system consciousness to galactic consciousness to supergalactic cluster conscious, when we really stretch out, we're going to realize everybody's pretty much the same. We're all kind of neighbors. Right.
Well, we don't know how safe those neighborhoods are.
That's a good point. So you believe there could be malevolent extraterrestrials. I've often thought that in order to receive this incredibly high technology through inspiration, that you would have to be like this high frequency, loving kind of advanced beings to get that. But perhaps maybe they were, but then they fell. But you're saying there are malevolent ETs. Well,
I'm glad you brought that up, Jake. I do talk about that in the book. And again, back to Dr. Brandenburg with his are you familiar with his books and his science papers on this Xenon 129?
I am familiar with that whole situation. I haven't taken the deep dive into him personally, but I know
you should have him on because he is amazing. Well, anyway, he talks about the Fermi paradox.
Okay.
You know the Fermi paradox?
Remind me, please, and remind our listeners.
He's a scientist, Enrico Fermi.
Okay.
He was part of the development of the nuclear bomb and everything. He actually was with one of his fellow scientists. They were, I guess, out to lunch, walking through the park, and they were talking about, that they now know that there's thousands and thousands of habitable planets. I mean, this was in the 40s.
Whoa.
And and so he says, well, if there's all these habitable planets, just through math, how it would escalate the chances of life out there, he said that where are they? That was his question.
Right. Now I remember. Yes, it's coming back to me.
Yes. Where are they? And, they're sending out, they have the SETI program trying to find signals. And Dr. Brandenburg thinks that, well, maybe we're not hearing these signals because the universe went quiet because, Darth Vader's out there running around killing everybody. And even Stephen Hawking's, when a couple of years before his death, he warned scientists that, do not try to contact extraterrestrials because you may not like it when they come to visit you.
Yes, because there's so much more advanced, and throughout history, when advanced cultures meet primitive cultures, it doesn't usually work out well.
Right. You don't want to attract unwanted attention. He mentions, look what happened to the American Indians.
Right.
We came over here. They weren't used to the colds and the smallpox that some of the people had here, and it was devastating to the American Indians. The same thing could happen having these extraterrestrials come, and they may say they're our friends, and 10 years later they run the planet.
Of course,
or they eat us. The cookbook.
Yes, the cookbook.
How to serve man.
Exactly.
What'll happen? So,
so
they all warn, don't do it.
I always think about They Live and then V, and then of course that classic Twilight Zone episode. To serve man, it is called, if I remember correctly.
Sure. All of the devastating results are around us. We have ruins on the moon.
Right.
We have ruins all over Mars. And, it's a warning. We should heed these things.
Yes. And should we prepare? What if some of this information is maybe using quantum waves or some other form of radio signal transmission, electronic oscillation that's different than what we can perceive?
Well, it goes back to what you perceive as technology. I knew a guy when I was in school. He talked about saying that, the wheel was a step backwards because ancient cultures flew. This is what he believed. And, they look around the ancient cultures and they go, well, they didn't have a lot of technologies. Where's their telephone poles? They didn't have any, electricity or anything. But, we don't need telephone poles now. We have the satellites going around with your phone and everything. So it's what you perceive and what you know, how you judge how an ancient culture was their level of technology. And it goes along with art. People always say, well, I know what I like, when I look at paintings and artwork. But the truth is you like what you know.
Right.
You only like art that you know about. But if you expand your horizons, you learn more about what artists are doing, you might go, oh, I always thought his stuff was awful, but now I just love what he's doing.
Yeah, you grow. You get at that information, you change.
And it's the same thing with science and judging ancient cultures. You're only looking at a very narrow perspective. And I think this is what NASA was over the years totally afraid that the culture would realize these things. And they think that once everybody was looking at the face, you had a mad rush of early researchers like myself looking for other faces on Mars. When we really didn't need to be looking for faces because there was all this geometry and all this symmetrical structures were all over the place. We weren't looking at them. We're looking for, other faces to show, yes, there is a face on Mars. Here's another one. Look at this. And we were overlooking for years all of the structures, the pyramids and the geometry. So,
but as these new images came in, you were able to find more. You were even able to go back and look at some of those other images. But before we talk about the petroglyphs and the other things that are on Mars right now that you found in your book, why is NASA so afraid? Is it really just the classic, like everybody freaks out and panics scenario? Or is it something more? Are they trying to suppress our development as a galactic species? Like, we want to go galactic. Like, is there some other ulterior motive happening? Why are they so afraid?
Well, I think it has to do, did you ever see the movie Contact?
Of course. I love that movie with Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey.
Right. And there's a group in there that the religious fanatics,
yes,
they cause a lot of trouble. And that's the group they're afraid of. And they're also afraid of the Muslim culture. They get very upset if you try to challenge their religion. A lot of religions are like that. So this opens up a whole can of worms. And as you saw in that movie, they represented that pretty well with showing all the riots and how the religious groups were very upset about this whole idea. And it just causes trouble. It's a big can of worms. And then you're supposed to tell people that this Mesoamerican culture is connected to this Mars. People start their eyes roll and they think you're crazy.
But there's so many connective points as you talk about in your book. But I think that people now, that movie Contact came out in 1997. It's almost, I can't believe this, but it's almost 30 years later. or 28 years later, almost 30 years later. Are people ready now? Even those fanatical people, has the frequency of just general consciousness changed in such a way that we can now maybe accept that?
Well, I think the now that we have Elon Musk, who wants to go to Mars, and the current administration that's on board with going with him, I think we're going to Mars. They're going to bypass the moon, and we're going to go right to Mars, because Musk wants to go to Mars. We can go. The moon's easy. It's 3 days away or less.
Right.
The moon. And they act like it's so complicated to go to the moon. We have to do this all preparation. We have to go there. They've already orbited around it and came back. Oh, we're so afraid. We can't land. And Musk is, he's got sci-fi rockets that he's shooting off, and they land with the same, just like you see in 1950s sci-fi movies. I mean,
oh my God!
Scientists said he could never do this. You can't shoot a rocket off and then land the same thing. No, that can't happen. And he's done it over and over again.
No, it's mind blowing. I mean, do you think he's the type of person that would reveal the information? Like, let's say he goes over there, there's structures, there's pyramids, evidence of advanced civilizations. Would he be on his X right away talking about it? Or would he also hide the knowledge?
I think there's no stopping it now.
Okay.
Because we're on that track. And I see that's our destination.
Wow.
And even the president called it the manifest destiny.
Wow.
So we're going.
There's a lot going on, and they're going to have to, I think, unveil new technologies to deal with transporting people back and forth faster. And I think perhaps all of it.
Years ago, Musk talked about having the ability. He had rockets that they've already been working on that are ready to go. It's just politics.
Right.
We've been stifled to go to the moon for the last 4 years. Politics was so involved in we were supposed to go back to the moon. They called it the Artemis program.
Yes.
Now, most people don't know what Artemis is. They think that's just a fancy name for a new medication. This is the Artemis. I'm on Artemis, And, that's Apollo's sister.
Right.
So, the old program was the Apollo program. And now they decided, well, we're going to go with women. We want to have, it's not about going to the moon. It's about getting a woman to the moon. So we're going to call it Artemis. We're going to have the first woman on the moon, the first black guy on the moon, the first Indian, first lesbian, or whatever they were trying to do. And they called it the Artemis program. And they were fighting for like the first year about who was going to be on board, which was pretty crazy. Not even working on getting us there. They're working on who's going to be the crew. That was their focus.
Wow.
And it just slowed everything down. And they just came up with so many delays. If you go back and look at some of the progress of the Artemis program, it was just shuffling their feet all the way.
Wow.
We were supposed to be landing on the moon in 2024.
I do remember reading about that. And, and interestingly, China is already there with the rover. They're on the dark side of the moon. They don't even really talk about that in Western media. I've covered it on my podcast. They're over there. They're doing a lot of things on the moon right now.
Well, Trump doesn't want the Chinese beating us to Mars.
He doesn't want Chinese beating us in anything.
Right. So, that's a big push right there. But yeah, the Chinese, they're ready to go, and I think they want to bring the Russians with them.
Wow!
When they go to Mars, so we have another space race going on, and it's to go to Mars. And the other problem with China is they believe wherever they land, they own. They don't follow the old accord where space is all going to be owned by humans, and when you go to the moon, wherever you land, that's all part of humanity. They think they own that area they landed on the far side of the moon, the dark side.
Wow.
They think there's a lot of elements there, all kinds of, they want to do mining. They're ready to
there's
go.
Tons of lithium there. I mean, there is a significant amount of lithium, nickel, and other kind of rare minerals like that. But they knew that when we went to the moon the last time. They know that it's just full of all kinds of great minerals and all kinds of rare metals and things like that. So
Yeah, these are hot spots, and God knows what's on the moon or Mars,
Oh,
besides the technology hidden in these structures.
See, that's really probably what the race is about. And those kinds of things are put into science fiction. You think about the CIA Project Mockingbird, how they influence media with various things.
Sure.
Perhaps, some of those things were dropped in there to show us that we have this ancient history over there, and perhaps to motivate us in a collective consciousness sort of way to manifest people like Elon Musk that will get us there, right. But it's very famously known that, if you know a lot about these things, that Werner von Braun, who's founded NASA Project Paperclip scientist, talked about how we were going to Mars and that a person named Elon would bring us there. So, that's...
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that was interesting. Well, von Braun, he wanted to be on Mars by the 80s.
Right. He did.
Yeah,
he was very motivated.
Again, going back to me being in high school in 1976, graduating the bicentennial class. When I was in school, the science teacher was talking about, because we had already been to the moon, that we were going to build bases on the moon. We're going to have hotels on the moon.
Right.
People were going to go on vacation there. Musk is talking about doing that on Mars, but that was the big talk in the late 70s. And then it all fell apart after, the space program was basically shut down. We stopped going to the moon, and it didn't really get picked up again until Reagan, when we had this shuttle and all that. And, once the one shuttle blew up,
yes,
they didn't do anything for years after that. And, not to be heartless, but, back in the day when they were sailing ships across the ocean, if the ship sunk, they'd send another one out.
Yeah, it was quite...
we're not going to do nothing for 10 years after that because we have to reconsider what we're doing. We're going to want to fall off the edge of the earth.
It was quite strange. It was, I remember watching that. I actually lived in South Florida during the time. We were watching that in school, and the Challenger blew up. And then in 2003, there was a Columbia, I believe, also exploded. We've had these problems, but then perhaps another reason, and maybe that's the cover story, but the real reason was they went over there, or they had some sort of reconnaissance happening and saw the structures, the real history, and created this cover story. Oh, this thing blew up, so we're ending this whole, decades long, $100 billion program over this one thing. You know what I mean? That could have been the cover story.
And to make it even worse, we were hitchhiking rides. Russia was taking us up to the space station.
No, I remember. I remember that whole era. It was quite strange. It was quite the contrast to the America of the 80s.
We hate the Russians, but yeah, they can take our astronauts up to the space station.
Well, it just kind of shows you how much of it is scripted. Like how much of it is the reality that we're fed, the Matrix. How much of it is actually what's really going on behind the scenes. It seems like there's a whole different story. So I want you to tell us and show us some of your slides. I think this is a great time to segue into your PowerPoint presentation. Now, we're going to record this video. We have the video. I have some of the pictures. We're going to put the slides on the website, but George and I are going to look at these. We're going to talk about these slides that he's showing me on this Zoom call. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, the things we're talking about, all of the things we're talking about are in his book, The Great Architects of Mars. So you can check that out there. But George, I would love to see some of these things and get your thoughts in real time on some of the things you're seeing.
Sure, Jake. Hey, there we are. Look how quick that happened.
The miracle of modern technology. It's all happening at the speed of light.
All right. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. I am here.
We didn't want to do that.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm getting a preview. I'm seeing the pictures, people. This is absolutely incredible. And again, like I said, all in the book, The Great Architects of Mars, Evidence for the Lost Civilizations on the Red Planet. This is a PowerPoint about that. But
do you have the PowerPoint up? It says The Great Architects of Mars?
Yes, sir. I see it as big as that. It's right there, right in front of me.
It's got the full screen.
Yes, it looks beautiful.
All right. Let's hit one of the buttons here. Get this show on the road, Jake.
Yes, sir.
All right. Normally, I start my slide presentation when I'm talking to someone on these podcasts, and we start with my book, But in the beginning of February, we had a lot of interest in Mars. Was spurred by Joe Rogan,
Right.
who responded to something he had on his X account. Somebody posted an image of a square formation that he was very excited about. He and his good friend Elon Musk also commented on that. So I basically put this in the beginning here just to give the audience an idea of what we're looking at. This is the Arabia Terra area of Mars. It's basically just about in the center of the planet. The viewers can't see this, but I got a mole-like map showing Mars. All the blue areas where the water would be, this is the low area. It's a map that shows the lower levels and the high levels. Everything that are mountainous are these darker brown areas. The low area would be the blue, which probably would be the paleo ocean that Mars once had. And we're finding a lot of these structures, these what I call compounds of structures, these complexes, I meant to say, is that they all seem to be near water. They're along the edge of the shoreline. The famous Cydonia area of Mars that has the famous face on Mars, that's just to the west of Arabia Terra, and that's right on the shoreline, just to give the listeners an idea of what we're looking at.
Yes, and blue, you're saying that blue was the original ocean.
Blue, yeah, the blue area would be, if the listeners want to go online and look up a MOLA map of Mars, and you know how we have the map of the world is flattened out? You have them in a lot of schools. You have them in your...
Of course, yes.
Next to the blackboard, there's a whole flattened out Earth. This is kind of like that. It's a flattened version of Mars, but it's a MOLA map, all of the heights, the depths of all of the areas. So these dark blue areas, this would be a small ocean here. This would be water. All this would be shoreline. So the famous Carl Sagan pyramids are over here next to the shoreline.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everything we're finding seems to be 30 to 40 degrees above the equator or 30 to 40 degrees below the equator. And that's the sweet spot. The same thing on Earth. You have a lot of civilizations are in, 30 to 40 above and below the equator.
Right,
and we're finding the same thing on Mars.
Wow, that's incredible. And of course, all the structures being by water sources as well.
It makes sense.
Yes.
It's just more evidence that these are probably, artificially constructed formations. This is the famous square foundation that Joe Rogan was talking about. This is an early Mars Global Surveyor image. What shocked us, the people that do this type of research, is like, why are people talking about an image that's, 24 years ago? This is from 2001. This is old. We talked about this when it came out, years ago.
I kind of remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of strange that this is the formation going around, on X that everybody's talking about. Again, it's like you say, is this part of the plan? And Dr. Brandenburg, who we've discussed with the Xenon 129 and all that, with the battles on Mars, he saw this and he said this is where X marks the spot, with Elon with the X. You put the X in the box.
But clearly nature doesn't make right angles. Those are perfect right angles. That's a perfect square. I mean, it's clearly artificially constructed.
Right. It's obviously, buried with sand and silt and dust and all kinds of things, but you can still see these are ruins. This is, part of the battles here, but part of this was blown up pretty extensively, but you can still see the footprint of where the buildings were.
Wow.
Now, this is the original image. This is a Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the highest resolution image that NASA can take. This was taken in 2018.
See, this is like how is this the highest resolution? I'm like, come on, they can take a license plate of freaking, you know what I mean? Like, this is what they're telling us is the highest resolution, I believe.
Well, it is, yeah. It's the Mars Reconnaissance, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter camera. This can take high-resolution pictures. You can actually photograph something as large as a Volkswagen on the surface.
Wow. Okay.
So you can zoom in on this, which we're not going to do here because I don't have the capabilities. This is just showing the original strip. And this is where the foundation is. You can readily see it. This is the same image. All I did was put a square in it just to show you that the formation is still there. There's the square formation. So there is about 8 different Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter lower resolution images of this area. There's a lot of pictures. It's not the only pictures from 2001. NASA's been taking pictures of this all along. We have about 8 pictures from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and so altogether there's about 10 images of this. This is just a comparison that I'm doing here, Jake. This is the ruins of a foundation, very similar to what we're seeing on Mars on the right side here. And as you can see, part of it's destroyed, part of it's covered with sand, but we know that's the remnants of a foundation. And it almost looks identical to what we're looking at Mars.
Yeah, it does look almost identical. And that's, again, one of the coolest parts of your book is that you show these anomalies and then you show how on Earth, there's several civilizations with the exact same structures, almost in the exact same way, and then the decay, the erosion, how it all crumbles, it looks exactly the same.
Right. I like to do the side-by-side comparisons because that really, it gets the point across. Speaking of side-by-side, this is actually a LiDAR image of the White City, which was found in Honduras in 2012. You see... Now, if we go back, I'm sure the listeners can go back with me.
Yes, they're following us.
This here, where the formation is, you see this ridge line?
Yes.
So the structures here, that foundation, it sits on this ridge line. You see this white sand here?
Yes.
So it's right on the edge where this formation set. Very defensive again, high up on a hill.
Right.
Now we're looking at this formation in Honduras, and this is sitting right on a ridge line. This is a ridge. This is where water would be. The LiDAR picture, gets rid of all the foliage, all the trees, and what you're seeing is the structure. And this is the remnants of a square foundation, just like we see on Mars. Now, when you look at this, you'd say that's not a foundation. That's nothing. That just kind of looks like a square. But we know this is real. This is an archaeological site. We can go there and look at it. The only difference with Mars is, it's on another planet, and it kind of looks like a foundation that's square. But this is pretty convincing.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. Now,
Jake, the other interesting thing about this formation on Mars, you notice this is diamond-shaped? I mean, you got the north-south orientation?
Yeah.
So it's not square with north. The north and south is on one of the 90-degree corners, the north and south. It's on a diamond shape now. The District of Columbia in D.C. is shaped the same way. That's where the Washington, D.C. is.
Oh, my
Washington, D.C., the boundaries of the original District of Columbia in D.C. was in the shape of this diamond at 39 degrees latitude.
Exactly where it is on Mars.
Which is 13, 13, 13. But that's a whole other story.
Wow. So wait, so the Martians were Freemasons? Is that what you're
hey, well, it's an old building technique. I think so.
Wow, that is just like mind-blowing.
Isn't that? Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
So just to give another example, I discussed this in the beginning of the book, the history of aerial reconnaissance. Started with balloons. People had balloons, they'd go up and they'd use them again for military purposes. You'd be able to see the enemy coming up in the balloon. And then we had the advent of the airplane with the Wright brothers, and they were bringing cameras up in the planes, taking pictures of landscapes, and they could do also military surveillance. And this is an interesting area, and this is going back to China. Speaking about China going to the moon, China has pyramids. There's pyramids all over in this little area called Xi'an, China.
And not many people know that, but there are pyramids all over China.
Right. Well, mostly in this area, this small area, which I have the little dot there. Now, if you go back in history here, 1947, we had a pilot that took a picture of this. And this picture, he took out his window in his airplane during World War II. And he called this the White Pyramid. He said it was amazing. It was beautiful. And this was considered a hoax for like 50 years. Everybody said this picture's been in a lot of books about ancient mysteries and unsolved oddities and things. And basically everybody said there's no pyramids in China. We asked them, they said they have no pyramids. And it's a hoax. Well, with the advent of Google, we now know that this area of Mars is full of pyramids. There's Mars. What a Freudian slip there. this area of China has pyramids all over the place.
Yeah.
And what the Chinese government has done is they planted grass and foliage and little plants all over the place. So it's hard to see from above. If it's, everything looks green, they look like just little mounds. But these are all built pyramids. Now, we don't know how old they are. It's hard to, get any factual information from the Chinese. It's a communist culture. Nobody existed before them, and they can't have the public thinking there was an advanced civilization before the Chinese emperors. It's a whole communist.
It's insanity. It's insanity. It's
insanity. So, nothing came before us. We rule everything. So don't even think about it. But they have these. They're everywhere. There's about 100 of them. And so this picture from 1947 was actually real.
Right.
But the only difference is the one in 1940s appeared to have white stone on it. Now, like a lot of ancient cultures, when another culture comes in, like the pyramids in Egypt, they were all at one time covered with white, beautiful marble.
Right.
What we see today is just a skeleton. A lot of people don't realize that those had white marble on the outside of them.
Yes, they were smooth with a capstone.
Exactly. And these probably look like that, but the Chinese government from the 40s, they took everything off of these.
Oh, my God.
So God knows what type of carvings or was there hieroglyphics on the outside. We have no idea. Well, so they took all of the stone off and they put grass and bushes.
Well, I just want to point out really quick that there is a connection between Egypt and China and Japan. They say, or some people say, that kanji and the various forms of Asiatic writing is the evolution of hieroglyphics. And perhaps there was some emigration of Egyptians prior to the civilization itself falling, and their remnants. This is like scouts or outposts, like you said earlier about these planets, but these are like outposts of ancient Egypt, perhaps, in these Asian areas.
You're catching on, Jake.
Whoa.
I think the crystals are talking to you tonight.
But that makes sense because...
Doesn't it? It all makes sense now.
Oh, my God. Now,
so they had these pyramids all over the world. I mean, they're finding them everywhere.
Yeah, Bosnia, there's pyramids everywhere. Of course, we know South America, there's pyramids everywhere. But
oh yeah. So I have this in the beginning of the book just to gear people up for sometimes things that you don't think are real are actually factual. So now we're on Mars. This is the Elysium area. We talked about that. It's on the eastern side of the image here. And that's where the famous Carl Sagan pyramids are, that he talked about.
Right.
And Carl Sagan, he actually wrote Contact.
Yes, I do know that actually.
Right. So it's all tied together.
He did leave it open-ended. You did kind of touch on this in your book. He did leave it open-ended. He did say, well, it could just be the winds are blowing a certain way, but we should go figure it out. But he did hint at it. He said structure and various other things. Right.
But yeah, he did say we need to go there and check it out. Just
absolutely.
It's like Elon said about the square formation. He says we need to send astronauts there and see what it is. Hey, that's all we're asking, right, Jake?
Absolutely. I think
we don't need stories of trick of light and shadow and blah, blah, blah. Hey, let's go there. Let's find out. If there's nothing there, we'll see it.
I just want to know our ancient history. I already know there's things there just like you do. You know what's going on there.
Yeah, we know. It's undisputable. You can't dispute it. Well, now, this picture, this is from the Mariner 9. The Mariner 9 took very high contrast pictures, almost black and white. And this is one of the sharp-edged pyramids. There's one of the Sagan famous three-sided. A lot of pyramids on Mars, Jake, we're finding are three-sided. On Earth, we have a lot of four-sided, like in China and all over the world. The Romans even built some small structures that were very pyramidal.
I wonder why that is. Perhaps it has something to do with the gravity, their own spiritual beliefs, or just how they showed up.
As you know, with Richard Hoagland, the tetrahedral, the three-sided, which is actually a four-sided if you count the bottom.
Right.
Tetrahedral geometry, the whole...
Oh, yes, of course. How could I forget that?
You have a lot of tetrahedral pyramids on Mars, which goes right along with what Hoagland said was the big, the secret that we were learning, the sacred information from Cydonia talked about tetrahedral geometry, and, the tetrahedral science could give us, power and, all this limited energy and things like that. So this was in 1972. Now, Sagan did not talk about the pyramids until I think 1980. He had his book, The Cosmos. He had his TV series, The Cosmos.
Right.
Well, this is a guy, Mac Gibson. This is the famous Gibson paper. He had a science paper written about these structures on Mars called The Pyramidal Structures on Mars back in 1974. So the scientific community was actually responsive to this stuff. They were taking it serious. He had this paper published in Icarus, the journal Icarus, which is a highbrow science journal. This isn't just one of these journals you can find on the internet today that'll publish anything. But this is a well-to-do science journal, very famous, Icarus. And he had this published before Sagan talked about it. And I'm sure Sagan probably found out about this from Mr. Gibson.
Yes, I'm going to say I didn't know about Mac Gibson.
Nobody does. It's in the book, and it may be because of his melanin. This is a black gentleman,
right,
that had this published first, which most people don't even know about.
Mind blowing.
Oh, it is. And of course, here's everybody loves Carl Sagan. He talks about the billions and billions of stars and all that stuff. And so, he had a long run. Sadly, I talk about it in the book because he never got to see any high-resolution pictures of his pyramids. He only had the Mariner 9, and then the Viking in 1978. It took a picture of the Elysium area, which captured the pyramid that he was looking at, one of the three-sided pyramids. But it was a worse picture. It was blurry. It was very gray. You could hardly distinguish any of the spines on it. It was very poor. So this is the last picture he got to see, was this Viking picture, which I have reproduced in the book. And the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the CTX camera, took a bunch of pictures of this area. There's probably 20 that they've taken. They just snapped a lot of these. And they're beautiful pictures, and I'd have those in the book. So the sad thing, he died in 1996, and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter CTX images didn't come out until 2007, over 10 years after he died. So he never got any closure on this, which I think is very sad.
Well, I'm hoping, he was visited by a man in black, a government official who asked him to get in the car for a ride. And he opened up a file and saw some things and was probably told, you could never say this, but here you go. You never know.
Well, he was the face of science, for years. He was the man. No matter what Carl Sagan said, everybody would believe it. So, but he didn't close anything on the possibility of pyramids on Mars. He always kept it open, which was great.
Right.
And I think if he had seen the CTX images that are in the book, he probably would have had to acknowledge that there's something there. This is just a picture of two of the three-sided pyramids in the area, in the Elysium. The famous Carl Sagan pyramids. As you can see, the spines are three-sided.
Right.
Very amazing. Wow. This one here on the left is actually the same one we were looking at earlier.
From 1972.
Yeah. This is exactly the same one, but in much more detail.
Wow.
Now, we talked about defensive structures earlier, these forts, star forts that we're finding on Mars. These are two star forts that are just above Carl Sagan's three-sided pyramids. It's in the same complex, same area. It's all mentioned in the book. And I call this a star shield. And it looks like it was a mound that was just carved right out, like somebody scooped out this and just carved it right into the sides of these mounds. And they're five-sided. They have these little weird crowns on the top going left and right. And I'm sure you saw in the book, Jake, how I show how the reason these are pointed like that, because it follows a circular alignment with its surrounding structures.
Right, exactly.
A lot of American Indians produced a lot of mounds throughout the United States, and a lot of them are positioned in these circular patterns, and it's finding the same pattern. I do comparisons in the book showing it's the same type of design. And I'm comparing these two. I call Star Shield on the left, which that's like at least a mile from the top to the bottom, and the Star Shield Junior, which is almost an identical structure, but it's like half the size. And I compare these with a star fort here on Earth.
Wow, it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing because you can see how as you have the comparison photo, the defensive positioning is there, the clustering, and how it's completely unnatural. It's so obvious.
Right, and I have these all clustered together in the original photograph from the Mars Reconnaissance CTX camera, and I show little arrows of like wind direction. How like you couldn't have all these geometrically shaped structures in the same area with, oh, this is caused by wind erosion. No, one wind coming in to create any kind of edge here would destroy something across from it because the wind would hit it. You can't have that. Normally, when you look at an area that has wind erosion, everything's going the same direction. If the wind's blowing west, all the structures have smooth areas on the west, going west.
Right. Exactly. So literally the winds of Mars itself would not create that naturally because of the erosion factor, how the winds blow, the speed, the material. They could only be created artificially.
Unless the wind on Mars is very artistical.
Hey, maybe it's alive. It's an alien. It's a living wind. You never know.
So moving on in the book, this is another area of the planet where I'm using which the listeners can't see, the Mola map. This is called Nepenthes. Another NASA. It's a long history of all the names of all of the areas on Mars. They're all named after Roman gods, and it's very mythological. So all these names, even Cydonia, all these names come from Roman Greek mythology. So this area, as you can see, Jake, it's right next to the shoreline.
Yes. That's
where this whole complex is. Now, here's another star fort.
Oh, jeez.
Easy, Jake, easy, Jake.
Come on. Wow.
I know.
And then literally
it's almost like they're identical.
Yeah, I know. Literally, people aren't seeing this. There's the starburst, which again, everything we're talking about is in his book, but he has a comparison picture, Fort Henry, Tennessee, 1861. It looks almost identical, meaning there's an archetypical design for conscious beings when we think about safety and fortitude. We create these structures. Wow.
And what is most striking, it has all these bastions, right? And
yes.
Same thing on the five-sided star shape here. But the weird thing, Jake, notice this is flat.
Yes.
Just like this one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And it also has the little buildings inside, where the armory is and the barracks and all that, the same little mounds here inside that star. So, again, another defensive structure because, there were wars on Mars. They had to protect Earth, so they'd rather fight over there. Here's a pentagonal shape formation. This is in the same area, and I just have an outline here showing the 5 points. And in the book, I show a comparison, which I don't have here, but if the listeners acquire the book, I show a comparison of a Mesoamerican pyramid that looks very much like this with the step sides and stuff. So it's just striking. Now, this whole area, these are a whole line of structures that were one after another in a row. I call this like a train of structures that goes across the surface. This is below that first group of structures we were looking at, Jake. This is further down below that. So this is all in the same area. So a lot of times when you find these structures, it's like these huge complexes where this is one of the outposts where they were, working. Each of these very geometric structures, I'll just go to the outline.
Sure. Oh my God.
They're all geometric. Pyramids, triangles, these long linear formations, circular mounds with squares inside. Again, these linear, and they're all on top of flat platforms. A lot of these structures are on these flat platforms. And if you ever look at any Mesoamerican complexes, you'll find that a lot of the Mesoamerican pyramids are built on top of these platforms, the supportive structures.
Right. Yeah,
so you'll find the same thing here.
Clearly, it's just mind-blowing because you can see the geometry, especially now that you've outlined it. But then, yes, every single one of them has a foundational situation going on, some sort of foundational support, and it's clearly visible.
Yeah. Now, the most interesting one here is this one here, which I call the crowned kite.
Right.
Right there, right in the center.
Yeah, I see it.
This is unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
That just screams of being something somebody constructed. This is not something you'd find in nature. And this is right amongst all those, pyramids, triangular shapes, square shapes, circular shapes that are all in the same area.
It looks like it could have been a wrecked craft or even, if long enough, a fossilized craft.
Everybody says it looks like a spaceship. It's an old Cleon. They park there for lunch, and it's just sitting there.
Wow.
A lot of pretty girls in the area, so they,
Hey, you know about Martian women? I've heard.
I've heard about those Martian women. Yes. Woo! Sure is hot in here. This is one of the structures at the bottom of that I call the train of structures. This again is on an oval shaped platform. It's got a linear rod structure in the center with this mound on the end. Now, the one on the right, the drawing, is of the Shore Johnson Mound Group. This American Indian mound. I mean, it's almost identical.
Wow.
It's a platform. This is a platform mound with a linear mound here and then a circular mound here, just like we have on Mars. As above, so below.
Wow. So then, would you say then that this indicates the remnants of a primitive earlier version of Martian culture, or just that these were foundational kind of support structures and this is what's left?
Well, we don't know. Okay. These platforms could have been used, land your little, your little vehicle there, and you got the building there, the long straight. It's like an airport.
Wow, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. This is actually a little further. This one here is to the east of that what I call Mean City. All those structures we were looking at, that's in the book. It's called Mean City.
Right.
That's a friend of mine that I actually found that stuff in that area. And he uses a moniker of Mean Green. If any of the listeners out there go on Facebook, you can go look up Mean Green. And that's his web presence. He calls himself Mean. I don't even know what his real name is. But in his honor, I called this whole area the Mean City.
Wow. I mean, this picture is just mind-blowing because not only is it the mounds, not only is it the diamond-style geometry, it's even more. It's hexagonal.
Yes, this is an elongated hexagonal formation. And I have it outlined there in the center.
Right.
And it has this rectangular oval-shaped mound in the center. Now, Jake, the formation on the far right is from Earth.
Yes.
That's in Turkey.
Right. It looks almost identical. Like almost identical.
It's a doppelganger.
Right.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It's mind-blowing because then I'm sure that was the water source perhaps, and then the structures are around this water source, but in the Martian picture, it looks more advanced just because of the geometry there, but still structures. This is not recessed. This is a elevated mound. Oh, okay. That looks recessed. Yeah. Okay.
A lot of people see it up. Your eye has to adjust to it.
Got it.
It's actually the other way.
Okay.
Maybe
Interesting.
If I go back out, do you see it now?
Yes. Okay.
Your eye has to adjust. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. You were seeing it as recessed, but that's
when it pops out. Yeah.
All the texture here. This is all the city. The little.
Right.
Adobes
Exactly.
Now, Jake, let's go to Mars. They're all on the other side.
Oh my God.
It's like a mirror.
Oh my God.
Isn't that weird?
That is so weird.
And then there's a little triangular pyramid right here. I got it outlined.
Oh. God.
And it's direct. It's in a direct line with the base. See, the line goes right out. Wow. So there's a lot of math. Math is hard.
I guess not if you're that advanced when you're creating these structures around the universe.
So this is Libya Montes area. We're moving to the west, and again, it's located right on the shoreline.
Right.
Another area. This is the famous keyhole structure.
Oh my God.
I love all your reactions. It's great.
Wow, this is amazing because honestly, it's just so obvious, even though honestly, I saw this in your book earlier today, but still it hits you every time. I mean, it looks like an exclamation point the way it's situated now. You turn it the other way, it looks like a keyhole. It's so clearly artificial. It's so clearly cut that it's astounding. And that alone, it shows you that something's going on in Mars. If nothing else existed and you just had this, that's already exciting and huge.
Yeah, it's just an amazing formation. And NASA releases, hundreds of pictures a month. and thousands a year. And very rarely do they have a little caption, telling you what you're looking at. Usually they take the pictures and put them out there. They don't have anything. They just give you the ancillary data, all the science, but they don't have any commentary. Well, this one, they said they call this, actually, if you go looking for it, it's in the book, and you can look up the image and download it. It's called the exclamation mark, like you said.
Right.
And they have one of their NASA scientists tell us that it's really nothing to look at because this is just created by a fault. This is a fault.
Somebody's at fault, and I think it's the people. I think it's the people BSing us.
Right. So in the book, I have we actually had a science paper published on this formation with two geologists, a geomorphologist, William Saunders, and Michael Dale, who was also a geologist. And they did all the science here with the measurements. And so we basically show how these could not be produced in nature by wind erosion, because the wind coming down the top of the wedge would obliterate the circle or the dome. So, I mean, how does this thing get produced? Naturally. This just screams of artificiality.
Right. And you did this report. I mean, how did people respond to this report specifically as you're out there with these people proving this?
Well, it's a lot of crickets. How? But, we did get it published in a journal, which is coming up in one of the next slides here. Oh. We heard nothing from NASA. It's like I'm a member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research, and there's over 30 members, and a lot of them have papers published about, anomalous formations on Mars. And there's probably 30 papers over the years that have been published, and they go on with no response. I mean, these papers are published, and no other scientist comes out to try to disprove it or have any comment. It's bizarre. It's like they don't exist.
It seems like suppression, honestly.
It does. This is another keyhole formation on Earth. This is in Saudi Arabia. With the advent of Google, people started finding these all over the place.
Come on! It's the exact same thing! Exactly!
Yeah. Right. But wait till you see what we found in Japan.
Oh, right! It's in Japan as well! Oh my God! What?
Yep.
What?
This is in Japan. This is the Kufan tomb. This is a tomb for an emperor in Japan. These have been there for thousands of years.
My God. Now, look, let's pause this for just a second, because let's just correlate what we talked about earlier, the emigration of Egypt into Asia, Japan, China. Now you're saying the Japanese emperor used this keyhole as a tomb for thousands of years. Here's the keyhole tomb on Mars. Oh, my God. That just makes me want to throw my pen down.
It's not a mic drop, it's a pen drop.
But that is
huge.
Here
first, folks. Jake is throwing his pen down.
That's huge, though, because honestly, though, I mean, it's exciting. But if you truly think about the correlations and kind of just put the pieces together, it's all right there.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yep. Let's clean it up now. Come on. It's a family program.
You're right. I'm going to edit that part out.
Yeah, this is truly remarkable. I mean, the geometry and the symmetry of this, it's just amazing. Yeah, we had a paper published in the Journal of Space Exploration in 2016. So it's been a while. And it was approved. We had two geologists, myself, and James Miller was part of the paper. He's an image analyst. And so we've had, like I said, we had 6 papers published. Now we're moving on to one of my favorite areas called Atlantis Chaos. Now this is located all the way on the western side, way down here. It doesn't look like it's near any water, but when you look in the book, you'll see it's right next to actually this large, huge crater that scientists believe, there's science mentioned in there about other scientists that say this was probably a huge waterway.
Okay.
This is right next to it. So again, we're finding a huge area that has a complex that appears to be built right next to a water source.
This one blew my mind. When I saw this picture in your book, this absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is a compartmentalized grid of all these structural I mean, Joe Rogan was excited about one square foundation.
I know, right?
Sure he hasn't seen this one.
Sounds like you need to get over there because this is huge. I mean, for people, just to describe this is what he's calling the Martian Atlantis, and it looks just like an aerial view of a city, and perhaps, a city you would see in the Middle East or in South America, but very coordinated rows, very designed. There's, like you said, foundations. You can see the remnants of structures. It's incredible.
Well, what this appears to me, these are just the foundations. If they had roofs, the roofs were blown off probably during that war that Dr. Brandenburg talks about.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing is we have these three structures in the center. This here temple, this dome here, like we have at the Capitol. And over here seems to be a wood mill or a barn or something. It's very strange. This is a side-by-side comparison of, we're going back to Saudi Arabia again with these compartmentalized buildings that are very next to each other. It almost looks identical to what we're seeing on Mars.
Yeah. So you're saying
if you showed somebody this and said, well, this is the eastern side of the same continent, they wouldn't argue with it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks almost identical. And you're saying it's almost like either the foundations or a cubicle type scenario where there's just like, segmented pieces that are connected, like cells.
Yeah, exactly. Cells, very cellular.
Wow.
I like your reactions.
I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I guess that's why I have this type of podcast. I love this information so much, and it never gets old for me.
Right. So this is just showing some of the roof, the arches that go up, comparing it to some of the ruins at Machu Picchu.
Right.
With the same type
Very
of
similar.
Yeah, you can see the roof lines here. They go up and down, see? And then actually there's some stuff inside. I mean, the exposed interiors. It's just amazing. It's like the bombed out ruins of Dresden.
Wow.
These are those three structures. This is the temple.
Right.
This is the dome, like we have the Capitol Dome in D.C. And this here looks like, down here where there's no grid, this is probably where the waterway was. So this working mill area was right next to the water.
Oh, my.
And in the book, I have a photograph of an old mill that's sitting next to the water that looks just like this. It's like, you can't make this. You can't make this stuff up.
It's impossible. And then the dome, I mean, you see the circular nature of it. Clearly it looks like a dome. Has anyone tried to identify that further?
No, I do comparisons in the book showing that this also looks like stupas over in India. They have those domes with the little
stupas or whatever. Yes.
So, yeah, very similar. The interesting thing is that everything else seems to have been destroyed here. The roofs are gone. You can actually see the peaked roofs here. And, at Nagasaki, when we dropped the bomb there and it went off over that church, and at Nagasaki, everything was flattened. It's just foundations around it. But the church still was there because that was at ground zero. The bomb blew up above that. So this may be part of the scenario that Dr. Brandenburg talks about, where these explosions took place above the surface on Mars during these ancient wars. And these structures here were underneath or above the ground zero. So maybe they were not blown up as much as everything else.
Wow.
Just a thought.
Yeah, well, hopefully they're still there when we get there. We could just do a little archaeological excavation.
I know. Wouldn't you like to go dig there?
Hey, I'm ready. Sign me up. Let's call Elon. Let's get him on the show. I need to get
him on
over
the
there.
show. Let's show him some of this stuff. I'll show him where to go. I could be like a guide.
Hey, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. I would actually I advise you to, contact him and put yourself out there in that way.
Well, my publisher's trying to contact him and Joe Rogan, and we haven't heard anything yet, but it's in the works.
Okay.
I'll call you if we make contact.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel honored that you're here now. I'm preempting Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster out there.
These are some more of those destroyed foundations. This is below the city that we were looking at, further down to the south area. These are 5 structures. You can see the triangular shape here. This one's shaped like an arrowhead. This is a triangle.
Right.
Here's a little bow tie. Here's the outlines.
Oh, right. Wow.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing is, you see this guy up here, the fractals.
Yes, yes.
You know what's repeated pattern, which is pretty bizarre. That reminds me of these American Indian. These were found out in Arizona. See, these are one building on top of, this is called a fractal, just like we got on Mars.
What?
Now, these pit houses were found accidentally. In Arizona, they were running a new highway through, and they were like tearing up the topsoil, and these were found. And then they had to stop the whole building of this new highway down in Arizona, because I think these were found in the 1990s. It's mentioned in the book. I can't remember the date, but it's the same idea. It's one building on top of another building, the foundations.
It's literally exactly
scientifically called a fractal.
Yes, it's literally exactly the same thing. These pit houses and the fractal blocks on Mars. Whoa. And again, this is another separate culture, yet older culture on Earth, doing these same things that we're finding on Mars. What the hell?
As above, so below.
Right.
This is another set of 5 structures that are similar to the last ones we looked at. And to save time, I'll just jump. This is the outlines of them. They've got a chevron up here, this whole big bell shaped, this hexagonal tomb like a casket shape. You got another triangular shape. Now, the interesting thing about these groups, each group has 5 structures that are just the remnants, because they've been destroyed, but this is like the footprint of what was there. Now, our image analyst, James Miller, he did measurements of all these, and he found a common measurement. It's all mentioned in the book, that if he measured from this point here of the chevron down here, it's the same as this point from here to here. The same from, this point from here. All repetitive numbers. Like we were talking about earlier, if you go to Home Depot and you get like a 4x8, everything has a common number and the size.
Yes, of course.
So all 10 of these structures all have common measurements.
Oh my God.
So not only do they look geometric, they're very symmetrical, they also have commonality in their size.
Wow.
And if you were going to build structures, you'd have a size that you'd use, the foot, the yard, or whatever it is you'd use, and that's how everything would be built. And these show that. And
the probability of this being random is so astronomically off the charts at this point with the geometry and the matching measurements. Like, there's no way it could, like, you do the math. Okay, you can't believe what's in front of your face. You do the math shows you.
Right. Yeah. And, that's what scientists want to look at. They want to look at geometry, symmetry, and math. And my book is full of it.
Yes, absolutely. I want you to show us a few more slides. I know we don't have too much time left, but show us a few more slides. Okay.
This is the famous parrot.
Yes.
Parrot formation. This is in the RG Basin area. And we had a science paper published for this. I guess we'll leave the listeners with the parrot formation on Mars.
Okay.
There's half a dozen pictures of this. This latest picture was taken from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the highest resolution image ever taken of this parrot formation. And we've had 5 veterinarians look at this and more off record, but they found officially 22 points of anatomical correctness.
Oh my God. So yes, people, now, what I'm seeing, just to describe for the listeners very quickly, this is the parrot not petroglyph, but geoglyph. It's a
geoglyph.
Yes, a geoglyph, and you can see his outline and what's there, and like you said, so many points of accuracy. It's just it's mind blowing.
It is, and you can see the feather frets. It's actually, if the listeners, it's actually a profile. It's a side view of a parrot.
Yes.
The parrot appears to be on the ground, laying dead. He's got his lower foot there on the sand. You can see the ankle and all the little claws. The other foot is up in the air. It's like he's got his foot up, like he's fallen over, and his one claw is up in the air. That's this claw here. And the toes are kind of mangled, like he's been hurt. And his back wing is up against the ground, so his feathers are up. His other wing is held close. Now, the odd thing about this, Jake, I don't know if you've read this part of the book yet, but he's got a feathered dart in his beak. You see that?
Yes. No, I do remember that part.
Well, finding the face on Mars and all of its connections to Mesoamerica, and a lot of the iconography we're finding on Mars has all this Mesoamerican correlation. This is what we believe is the principal bird deity in Mesoamerican mythology, back to the Popol Vuh. The principal bird deity was part of the early creation mythology. Now, he was a little devious. He was a parrot, or he was also called Seven Macaw. Macaws and parrots, very similar. And Seven Macaw, he was called that because he represented his celestial position was the Big Dipper, with 7 stars in the Big Dipper. So he was Seven Macaw, principal bird deity. And in the beginning of mythology with the Maya story in the Popol Vuh, the principal bird deity stole the sun, and he hid it, and he was sitting up in the world tree, which was at the center of the earth, the world tree. He'd go up there and sit on top of the tree. Well, the hero twins, a lot of cultures, early cultures, have this mythology of these 2 boys, the hero twins. You had them in the Greek mythology, Roman mythology. Well, the hero twins went hunting for the principal bird deity. They found him sitting up in the tree, and with their blow dart, one of the hero twins, one of the brothers, shot him and hit him in the beak and killed him. And he fell from the world tree to the ground dead. And they retrieved the sun, and that was a happy ending for mankind. But this is a parrot, appears to be dead, laying on the ground. This is a sculpture. It's not a real parrot. This has been carved into the surface. And he's got a blow dart sticking out of his beak.
Oh, my God.
You can't make this stuff up.
Oh, my God.
We're finding that a lot of these pictographs on Mars tell stories that are directly connected to Maya mythology. This is only one of the stories that we're finding. So it appears that someone recorded human history on the surface of Mars, not only having these outposts that were there to militarily protect us, but they were also putting out a lexicon of our history in these pictographic images.
So you feel like this was created by people that were brought there from Earth, perhaps Mayans, continuing their culture there?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, the Maya got the story from these.
You feel like, okay. I wasn't sure you were
going that. So
this is where
stories
originated.
Their stories are in line with this ancient story they were told by this group.
So all of this you're showing us, and all of this we're talking about, all of this seems to point to this civilization that was there before Earth and came here to colonize this place. What would happen if all of that information was finally revealed? Would it really change us that much, or would it just kind of add to our richness, the depth of our story?
Well, I think it would really awaken us to who we really are. I don't think any of this information diminishes any existence of a God, any type of being that created us, because whoever these extraterrestrials were, they probably believed in a supreme being. So Absolutely. The supreme being idea, I don't think is diminished by any of this. It just shows that whoever these people were, these humans that the supreme being created, is a lot older than we're aware of. And they've been traveling the universe, and they've made contact with us at one time. And this is just part of our human history.
Yes, and we're reconnecting with it. We're reawakening. We're reintegrating this ancient history that's ours. It's part of the human story as we evolve into this next phase, as we move into this new Earth, wherever we're going.
And hopefully it'll bring the planet together, this information, because,
so.
We're all brothers.
Yes, and like we were saying earlier, and to just close it out, I mean, we're all family. We're all neighbors. We're just life. We're light beings. We're in these physical bodies. We're not our body. We're in our body. So we're all connected in that way, regardless of how the vehicle shows up. That living light, that divine spark shows up for every being all throughout the universe, the multiverse. However life shows up, there is that divine spark, and we have it too. So we're all connected.
I couldn't have said it any better, Jake. I think you're right. And, and what we're finding on Mars illustrates that, and I think supports it.
Yes,
it's just
absolutely.
part of our history that's been forgotten, and we need to go there and, let's get the truth out.
Yes, absolutely, George. This has been such an incredible episode. I am so thankful and so grateful for you sharing this information with us, sharing your time. This has been so riveting. It's actually riveting. We're going to have you back at some point. Sometime in the future, you got to come back because there's so much more to talk about. But I do want to tell people where to find you. The Cydonia Institute. .com is the website. You can go there. You can find all of the information all about George. The book, The Great Architects of Mars, Evidence for the Lost Civilizations on the Red Planet, available anywhere books are sold. Really, you should get the book and then re-listen to this episode with all of the pictures in your hand, and you'll know what we're talking about. What he's discovered, what he's uncovered, and what he's outlined is so mind-blowing that it's literally going to shake the foundation of the human experience. It's already happening, but when we integrate it, we're really going to become something else. Well, thank you so much, George, for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yes, if they are interested, they go to the Cydonia Institute. All the science papers that I've mentioned are all downloadable on the website. They can download them for free and read them, so they don't have to go out and purchase a big journal or anything. They're all available there. There's small articles that we've written that are on there talking about some of these structures. So there's a lot to access on the website. And I agree that the book would be a great thing to have while you're looking at some of these and reading the book. The Kindle version is great because you can zoom in on everything. It has high resolution pictures that we provided for the Kindle version. So you can zoom in on this parrot, look at its mouth, see its tongue, and all that kind of stuff. And you can do the same thing with some of the other structures. So buy both.
I totally agree. This book actually gets my highest recommendation. Go out and get it, people. Check out the website, the Cydonia Institute. George, thank you so much for being here. Please hold through the outro music. And everyone else, my God, we learned so much today. We have a history yet to be discovered, but it's coming. And we will see you next week, midnight on Earth.